Hi friends, it's Angela from Cake Angel, and today I'm going to show you how to make this wonderful assortment of floral cupcakes that are perfect for Mother's Day. So let's start with our first one. We're going to be using tip 104, which is a petal tip. We're going to start with piping just a basic petal. Now as I'm left-handed, you can see that when I do this, I'm piping from right to left, and it's almost as if you're piping a rainbow shape. And when you do this, make sure that that tip is always hovering just above the surface. You don't actually want it to touch the cupcake here, as it will give you a much nicer definition and ruffle to that petal if you have it hovering ever so slightly. You'll also notice as well that I have the narrow end of the tip pointing towards me, so that makes sure that we get the thinner part of the buttercream on the outside of the petal rather than on the inside. Now to do my second layer, I'm just cleaning off my tip so that we get a nice clean edge for our very first petal of the next row. And I'm raising the angle of my bag ever so slightly, just so that the petals will sit nicely on top. We don't want this to look too flat, we want it to have some definition and character, as it is meant to be resembling a real flower. So you just want to make sure you keep that angle lifted ever so slightly every time you add another row to your flowers. And we're just about done with our second row here. You can see all those nice details in the petals as well. Perfect. So the next thing we're going to do now is add our center. And for this flower today, I've chosen to use green icing, as I wanted to make a set that involves the least amount of colors possible for you. So we're just using 3 colors throughout the whole set today. I've started with a small hole in my piping bag, and I've just done a little spiral of icing in the middle, and then next I'm just adding little peaks around the outside of that, just to give some definition as if we were replicating pollen. So for this I'm squeezing, and as I take the pressure off I pull upwards. You can see my bag is at a 90-degree angle here, and I'm also not using a tip. Now if you prefer precision, you could use a tip 1 for this, but I find when I'm doing little details it's just as easy to cut a small hole in my bag instead. And there you go, there's our first flower finished. Isn't that really pretty? So now we're going to go on to a different one. We're actually going to make a hydrangea cupcake. For this we're going to be using 2D, which is typically used for swirls on cupcakes, and I wanted to show you a different use for it. And all you're doing is holding it above the surface of the cupcake, you squeeze, you take the pressure off the bag, and then you pull away, and you get that really nice ruffled start, which it creates all the individual flowers on a hydrangea. Look how easy and quick this is to pipe a whole cupcake as well. It doesn't take long at all. This video is not sped up, by the way, so everything you see is me piping in real time. And then I'm going back to my green piping bag that we used in our previous cupcake, and just adding some little green centers for each of the flowers. Just gives it that little extra pop of color as well, and keeps it a little bit more realistic. So there you go, there's our second cupcake done. Really easy use of tip 2D, but now I am going to show you the more traditional 2D rows that you are familiar with on cupcakes. And for this, I'm holding my bag at 90 degrees, raised above the surface, and I start squeezing as I pull around from the center to the outside of the cupcake. And that's all it is. That's how you do the 2D rose swirl. So now we're going to go on to some very different tips. These are Russian piping tips. I will pop the link for these in the description box below. For this one, this is a bit of a fantasy flower, almost like a little bit of a succulent. I just wanted to show you something a little different that you can do with Russian tips. So the same principle as before, we're squeezing, we're hovering above the cupcake, and then once we've got the right size of shape that we want, we stop squeezing, take the pressure off the bag, and then pull that tip away. And you can see it gives that really nice line detail, and also that little bump in the center as well, which is the center of the flower. Now, again, I'm not sure what kind of flower this would be called. I think these would look great in green if you wanted to do a succulent set, but they are really cute as flowers as well, and they fit this set perfectly. So I'm just going to pipe another one here. Perfect. The next thing we're going to do is add a little bit more icing onto that last one, just to smush down the center, and there, that looks much better. Second thing we're going to do to this cupcake now is add some leaves to it. This time you'll notice on my green I am using a tip. I'm using a piping tip 352, which is a basic leaf tip. And when you hold it, make sure that you hold it as if it resembles a beak. So essentially the tip should be one on top of the other. You shouldn't see that opening on the tip as you're piping. And take your time when you pipe a leaf. The more time you take, the more definition and detail you will get in your leaves, and you can see that it gives you all those nice veins and also that central line down the middle of the leaf as well. And I'm just adding them in the gaps to fill in the cupcake. Again, this is just to add a little pop of colour, and it really finishes off that cupcake nicely. And now we're going to move on to our last cupcake, which is a tulip cupcake. Again, I'm using Russian tips for this. And for this one, you just need to make sure you hover above the surface and take your time. This one takes a little bit of practice. You want to make sure you squeeze really hard and that you also have very stiff icing for this. Now here you can see I had a little bit of trouble and my icing wasn't actually sticking to my cupcake. So you just want to wipe it off. No issues doing that at all, and then redo it. Again, you take that pressure off when you've got the right height of flour for you, and then pull the bag away. You don't want to keep piping as you're pulling away, otherwise the top of the flour won't finish off nicely. We're going to fill our last one in here, and I think this is a great one. Really easy. Once you get used to working with Russian tips, you can make all sorts of different flowers with them, and I think this one is one of my favorites for sure. To finish it off, we're going to do the same as the last cupcake. We're going to add some leaves in there again. And just to recap, you want to make sure that beak is facing with one point on top of the other, and then just squeeze and pull. Squeeze and pull, and you get all those nice definitions in the leaves as well. I'm going to fill the center in as well, just to add a little bit more around that central tulip, and then we'll be done. And there we go, that's our final cupcake finished. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this quick tutorial. As I said before, this is real-time video. I haven't sped this up at all, so you can see that these cupcakes actually haven't taken very long to make. I'm going to pop all the information for the buttercream in the description, and don't forget to make a comment and also subscribe if you've enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching.